Hello?
Hi, Josh.
Hi, how's it going?
I am fine, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview. This is a tremendous honor for me to be able to talk to you about everything that's going on right now with you.
Cool.
So, of course, there came to be a live version of the human equation called the theater equation. Now, how did this all come about?
Well, as you know, it's a whole theater production. Did you just hear the audio, or did you also see the video?
I just received the CD version of it through MP3 form, but I did see today that Isolation got released as a YouTube track.
Yes, yeah.
And I just watched that a few minutes ago.
Okay, cool. It started really when I was driving to an interview, or no, I think an autograph session with my former manager. And she has a background in theater, and she was telling me like, hey, I need a new challenge. And I was joking to her, and I said, well, you know, why don't you set up a theater play for the human equation? And she was like, yeah, maybe. And then she started thinking about it, and she was like, how are we going to do that? Well, you know, like really small with a couple of local singers and a couple of local musicians. So that's how it all started. And then at some point, the original cast, some singers of the original cast, like Devin Graves, got interested. And he said, well, if you're doing that, you know, I want to be part of it. And then Marcella came and said, well, I'm in the original, I'll be part of it. And suddenly, you know, it started growing. And then we were like, well, shall we ask James Labrie? You know, if he says yes, then that would be great. And he immediately said, oh yes, oh, that's a great idea, and this is really the way I want to go, and I love the original album, so I'll be part of it. So then we decided to get the whole original cast, which we almost got, only we couldn't get Michael Akerveld because he was too busy with Opeth, and we couldn't get Devin Townsend because, you know, he's Devin Townsend. He's just going to do his own thing. And obviously we couldn't get Mike Baker because unfortunately he died. So yeah, it started as something really small, and it started growing and growing and growing. And then when I put it on Facebook, it was like sold out. I think with 3 shows were sold out within a week or within 2 weeks or something. So yeah, there was an amazing reception of the fans.
Oh, absolutely. And if I could have made it over to Europe, I would have loved to have been there in person, as the Human Equation is one of my all-time favorite albums.
Oh, cool.
It was my first discovery of what you can do as a musician, and you helped me discover so many of my favorite bands.
That's good.
So, how do you feel about the Human Equation in a live aspect? Because I know you didn't originally think of this as live.
No, not at all. You know, because I'm kind of a recluse, so I don't play live anymore, and all I want to do is compose and produce music. You know, that's what I do, and so I wasn't thinking about live at all. But yeah, now it's come to life, and of course it was such an emotional experience for everyone. You know, not just for the audience, but also for the musicians themselves, and the singers all turned out to be amazing actors. So yeah, that was a big surprise for me. It was like, oh my God, you know, it's my story has come alive. It's possible.
And yeah, I mean, I've only had the chance to hear it all through the MP3 form, but I gotta say, at least audio-wise, I really love what I've heard so far, and what I've seen from the trailer that got released and just watching Isolation, I really love the way that it turned out from a fan aspect.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, I'm really happy with the production, and I was really afraid of it, because it's so many tracks you can imagine. There's 10 instrumentalists on stage, there's 12 singers, there's a choir of 20 people, so it was hundreds and hundreds of tracks, and I got them, and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to make this sound like a good, you know? It was hard work. I worked on it for 3-4 months, day in, day out, but I'm really happy with the result.
Would you say that was the hardest aspect of getting this live, is to have it recorded and make it sound as good as you want it to be?
No, of course. To set this up is a big thing. It took 2 years to set this up. Of course, you have to arrange all the singers, you have to arrange all the musicians, you have to get the together, and you have to rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. You know, we had understudies for all the singers, which was great. There were people from the choir, which means that we rented like this big hall, and there we could perform the whole show with all the understudies. And the great thing is that these understudies in turn could teach the real singers their part. You know, so for instance, James Labrie had Jan Willem, who was one of the guys of the choir, as an understudy, who knew exactly what James had to do. You know, so that was great. That was a great solution.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that too. I mean, just like the whole story is so expansive and so huge, and just it being able to translate live as well as it has. Do you see any of your other albums translating live, or do you just see this as like a one-off project for you?
Well, obviously, when I was talking with my former manager about doing a theater production, the first thing that came to mind was Human Equation, because all my other stories are these huge epic sci-fi things, you know, in space. So how are you going to do a theater production of that? You know, the first album is about the medieval times and the end of the world, and Electric Castle, of course, was this big fantasy story with all these characters from different eras. That would be very hard to put that in theater. You need a lot of effects, you need a lot of stuff. So theater, the Human Equation was obviously the best choice and the simplest story to put. You know, it's a guy in a coma who's being confronted by his emotions, so it's not so hard to put that on in the theater. My other stories would be very hard. You would need a lot of extra stuff and a lot of effects, but yeah, it's something to think about, of course.
Yeah, I mean, depending on budget, of course, and getting everybody involved and everything, I would love to see if there's ever a chance of any of your other recordings translating into a theater form. I mean, with the Human Equation doing as well as it has, from what I can tell, I mean, just like the sold out show is almost immediately to the live DVD, Blu-ray, CD coming out. I mean, it's just fantastic to see.
Cool, yeah. Well, I think the Theory of Everything would be the best option to do live. You know, it's a story you could do in a theater. So, but yeah, it is expensive. This whole production cost like $500,000 to set it up, and yeah, you have to take, and it's 2 years work, you know, so it's a lot of work. So, but yeah, of course, this was such a big success that I'm already thinking about something new.
As far as putting something in theater, or are you talking about for new original music?
No, something to do performance-wise.
Oh, performance-wise, okay.
Performance-wise, and it doesn't even have to be theater, you know. There are a lot of options. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking about it, because this was such a cool experience.
From what I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, you did have something, you did play live on one of the shows, correct?
No, I was, the end of the story is kind of like a sci-fi thing. The end of the Human Equation, the whole story transpired inside the dream sequencer, which was visited by an alien called Forever. So we were thinking hard about how to do that live. You know, you're going to put an alien in a capsule or whatever, and then we thought, wouldn't it be great if we have this dream sequencer on stage, and the whole person who thought of this whole story up comes out of the dream sequencer, which is me. So that's what we did. So at the end of the story, the dream sequencer is being driven on stage, and the curtain closes and the curtain opens again, and then the dream sequencer opens and I come out.
Oh, that's very cool.
In a beautiful silver suit. So, and even for that I was extremely nervous, so I didn't have to do anything.
I can imagine so, but that's really cool, and I'm glad that you got to be a part of it in a live aspect in some way. Even with it just being that, I think that's a fantastic send-off to the Human Equation.
Yeah, I think people liked it, and people did. Of course, the first show, people did not expect that. You know, they saw this machine on stage, and they did not expect it at all. And it's funny when I listen back to the recordings, and you know, the thing opens and I come out, and first there's absolute silence. There's absolute silence, like nothing happening. And then suddenly there's this huge ovation, and it was a great moment. Obviously, the second time, you know, people knew, or at least a couple of people knew. But and no one knew, not even the musicians, not even the singers, no one knew about this. So it was a big surprise for everyone.
Oh, very cool surprise at that. Again, just very cool to see that you were a part of that.
Yeah, but I was nervous. I have such stage fright, you know. It's terrible. But I did it. People were happy, so.
Could you ever see yourself doing that again? Or would that just be one time for you?
You mean the whole
well, I mean like a
theater equation or an appearance on stage?
Well, I mean like an appearance on stage, but also now that you mention it, it's about the human equation. I mean, would that just have been just those special shows, or?
Yeah, no, this was it. This, as I said, it was €500,000 to set it up. So you can only do that once, and you can only do that in Holland, where everything is centered. It's just too expensive to tour with it, and also the availability of the singers, of course. I mean, a guy like James Labrie is so busy with Dream Theater, so that would be impossible.
Oh, that does make sense, but I'm glad that it did get recorded, so everyone that couldn't make it to those shows will be able to experience it just like I can.
Right, yes.
So, how does the human equation hold up for you now, after experiencing all this?
Well, I have to say I was pretty proud of myself as I was, you know, as they were performing this, and I was behind the stage, of course, nervously running around. And at some points I was like, damn it, man, I composed this crap. I made this, and I was like, whoa, you know, this is my thing, and all these singers and all these musicians are playing my stuff, and they're doing a great job, and I have to say I was pretty proud.
And you deserve to be proud for that. I mean, with every album that you've done, I mean, there isn't anything that I've heard you put out in recent years that I haven't absolutely loved, and I love seeing that my favorite Ayreon album has translated into theater form, and I can experience it on my TV with surround sound and be able to enjoy it the way that everyone else got to in a live form.
Yeah, well, it won't be the same, of course, as being there, because it was such an emotional experience, and but yeah, I hope we were able to capture some of the magic, at least.
So what's next for you then?
Well, I'm working on new stuff. I'm always working on new stuff, if I can, if I have inspiration, but I have. And I always plan, but I never stick to my plans. So I never tell people what I'm working on, because, you know, it often starts out like a solo album. I'm going to do a solo album, and then I start this song, and it's like, oh, I can't sing it myself. I need another singer. And then, oh, no, I need another singer who can respond to that. And then before I know it, it turns into either a Star One or an Ayreon. So, but anyway, I'm working on something new, and it will be something big. It will be big story again. And it won't be finished this year, so it will be a early next year release, I guess.
Is it too early to say the style that it's going to be in?
It's, as always, everything I do is a reaction to the album I made before this. Before this was a Gentle Storm album, which in my view was kind of a little bit of a female album. Maybe because Anneke was singing it, maybe because she wrote lyrics and it was a love story. So it will definitely be something different than that. It will be probably go back into space and as a reaction to the last Ayreon album, which wasn't a sci-fi story. And I guess it will be a bit heavier, a bit rockier, I guess.
Oh, very cool.
At least so far, as what I've recorded so far.
Oh, sure. And things are always bound to change, too, depending on the direction that everything starts to go once it gets further along.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's like, which singer am I going to get? And then I choose a singer, and the singer comes over here. And even then, things can totally change, you know. Like, hey, let's sing this an octave lower. Okay, let's get rid of the guitars. And it's in constant motion. I had to learn that. I didn't do that when I started Ayreon. I was, like, really narrow-minded. It was like, this is what I wrote, this was what it had to be. I wrote these lines for the singers, they have to sing them in this melody. But then you work with people. Great, great.
I was going to ask, how do you feel about the songs being performed live?
Well, it's great for me, of course, because so much of my stuff is never performed live. I remember when I was working on the album with Anneke, and Anneke said, "Do you mind if I play this live?" I was like, "Do I mind? That's great, you know. Finally, my stuff is being performed live." So no, that's fantastic, of course.
Well, I'm glad to see it too, because I do love both versions that came out, the Gentle version and the Storm version of the songs, and I'm glad to see that they are getting translated live.
Yeah, it is possible, because the moment she said I want to do it live, I kept that in mind, because a lot of my stuff can't be done live, you know, but yeah, this can be done live, and I remember seeing it live for the first time, Gentle Storm. I went to them there, the first show they did in Amsterdam. And I was like goosebumps all over. It's such an amazing band, and it sounds so great. And of course, Anneke is like the best singer in the world. And I was really, really, really impressed when I just saw the sound check, you know. And I think they got a great band together and a great sound.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I cannot wait to see those songs performed live in just a few months. And again, just being able to see that there is a live version of The Human Equation coming out, and being able to see sounds from the Gentle Storm in 1 year, that makes me a fan of everything that you've done very happy this year.
Excellent, man. That's very good.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you for taking all this time to do this interview. I probably have another 3, 4, 5 hours worth of questions I could ask you, but I'm gonna cut it a little short just to focus on the live equation. But once again, thank you for taking the time to do this. And before we go, is there anything else you'd like to mention that I haven't brought up yet?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything.